Dynasty managers are hitting the trade button extremely hard. Today, we're going to go over the 5 most traded players over the last week in Dynasty Fantasy Football right here on Player Profiler. So, folks, my name is Pete Nova here with Player Profiler. You know me, you love me. This is the Dynasty Stock Market, and I do have a guest with me today. So this is the second episode of the Dynasty Stock Market. I will mix in guests here and there. I'm going to bring up my co-host for today. It is Jeremy Popes, analyst for FTN Fantasy and the creator behind Beyond the Chalk Substack. I'm going to pull him up right now. Jeremy, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing, I am doing better than Verizon on National Outage Day. So yeah, we're doing. I'm alive. I'm ready here. The Bills won a playoff game, got one now this weekend,
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
we'll keep that for another time, but
Yeah, I mean, for those that might not know, I am a Broncos fan and Jeremy is a Bills fan. So
it just coincidentally worked out.
Yeah, maybe the casual talk, or we'll get into that at some point. But for those that are not aware of what this show will pretty much entail, it's going to be the 5 most traded players from last week's show to now. Now, ironically, 2 of those players, Brian Thomas Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr., are still in the top 5. We went over them last week, but they are not number 1, and they both were actually tied there. The number 1 most traded player is Rashee Rice. So we're going to talk about Rashee Rice, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey, Tyler Shough, and Emeka Egbuka. If you have any questions, we will answer mailbag. We'll answer some questions as they pop up in between players. But yeah, let's jump over to the first player that we're going to talk about today, and it is Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Rashee Rice has been traded 412 times. It's a huge spike. I mean, he is more than 100 times traded than the next player, and it's not a surprise, right? There's some possible news, right, that came out recently, with his with some possible domestic violence stuff. Obviously, there's nothing that's came of it so far, but there's some speculation out there. You couple that with the suspension last year. He came off an ACL, but looked phenomenal. This is a guy that was a second-round pick in 2023. He was 2.24, so 24th pick in the second round off the board. Still just 25 years old. And right now in startup ADP, he is the wide receiver 11 off the board. He goes behind Nico Collins and ahead of George Pickens, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Emeka Egbuka. Let's talk about it first, Jeremy. Let me ask you, with Rashee Rice, there's a lot of panic. Are you one of those people that would be panicking if you have him? Let's start off there with, the whole situation, the suspension we saw prior, and how this possible new news could affect his fantasy value. Are you somebody who is a guy that likes to take a chance on that murky waters and get some value on a trade? Or are you somebody that's probably maybe trying to sell him before some more news comes out?
So I feel like I probably wouldn't sell him on the basis of, like, you're selling low. Like, the news is out. It's pretty obvious. It doesn't look great. Hence why he's the number 1 traded player in Dynasty football at the moment. As much as it's a long game, there's a lot of immediate reaction in the Dynasty streets, and this is one of them. It feels like a little bit of should be a hold, I suppose. It's still a guy that saw plenty of value last year as far as receptions per target. According to FTN Fantasy, he was top 5 in receptions per game at 6.6. We have him with 9.8 targets per game, which was top 5 amongst wide receivers. So he's a guy that still is when in the game, the focal point of the Kansas City offense. And obviously, you're looking at Mahomes potentially missing some time next year. Sure. Still 25. I mean, he's nearing like an age cliff for wide receivers. I don't know if he really crests the 30, but he could in the way that his role is in Kansas City and still have viability. So there's still a lot of shelf life to Rashee Rice. It's really all you're worried about is the off the field stuff. Tough to know, and it's tough to gauge on what that will be. So I feel like for Rashee Rice, he's kind of a risk tolerance type of player as far as when you value it. Like what is your risk tolerance? Where do you sit? Kind of like you asked me, for me, I personally wouldn't be trading for him. I just don't necessarily go that route. Injuries are easy to say, okay, they're going to be back at time, blah, 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 blah. Off the field stuff, you never really know. Also, already having a pretty serious and down as far as the legal system goes, even like it wasn't like, full on seriousness as it could have been for probably somebody who wasn't Rashee Rice, but it was pretty hefty as far as what he had to go through as far as the suspension off of that car accident and everything that took place there. If this domestic violence stuff does come out to be legitimately true, I don't know the legal system enough to know, but I'm sure this would be like a second offender. He's also probably on probation, which is also usually, from what I know, not good. So I don't think that like it could be really bad. It could be a bad situation where's a player that you're going to trade for and lose complete value, and so for me, he's a little too risky in my book. Like it's a guy that I'm like, okay, if he hits, we know who he is. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. You could get other guys that are similar to him. Every single player that you mentioned where he's being drafted around, like I'd take all those guys over Rashee Rice. Like very similar players. Could Rashee Rice outproduce him? 100% if he actually plays. But it's just a lot of concern, I guess, on the off the field stuff for me. That would be my avoidance with Rashee Rice.
Yeah, and I think with Rice, you mentioned it, Mahomes, the injury. Is he ready week one? How does that affect it? For dynasty purposes, though, that's really not a big deal if Mahomes misses the first few games. I mean, I'm not factoring that in for a young player like Rashee Rice. Now, if we're talking a Devontae Adams, right, where, he had a potential, an older veteran where you don't really have much shelf life for them in dynasty, right? Maybe that plays a more, the less games with a good quarterback, the less viability they have. When you look at Rashee Rice, I mean, like you mentioned, we know what he is. I mean, this is a guy that, the first game back, 10 targets, 9 targets. They didn't shy away from getting him back into that game plan. And look, the possibility of Travis Kelce, retiring is also huge. I mean, we know what Rashee Rice does. He works in the middle of the field, right? Him and Kelce kind of work off of each other. And with Kelce's kind of decline in skill a little bit, it's only helped Rashee Rice be more of a focal point in the offense. You mentioned, some of the players going around him, and I talked about it as well. It kind of begs the question of, could potentially look at a tear down, right? If you have him and you're concerned, if I have Rashee Rice, I'm not necessarily panic selling him. I'm kind of with you. I'm not really a buyer. I'm more of a hold to sell. And if I was selling him, it's really on teams that maybe I'm thin at the wide receiver position. If I have a lot of depth, I can kind of take more of a higher risk tolerance. Now, if Rashee Rice is my wide receiver 2, and there's a pretty steep drop off from wide receiver 2 to my wide receiver 3 on my dynasty team, I might consider a tear down with Rice because, I'm going to have to make up that gap pretty largely if there is a possibility he is suspended. So I think in that scenario, if you're a little more thin, a tear down makes sense. But like we talked about, these are some of the players. Let's just go through them right here, right? So we talked about George Pickens. We talked about Olave. We talked about Wilson. We talked about Egbuka. From your standpoint, you are saying you would prefer all of those players, all 4 of them, over Rashee Rice. Is that correct?
100%, yes.
Okay. Let's keep going until we find a player where you say, yeah, I would know. I would prefer Rice. Marvin Harrison Jr.
No.
Okay. So that's pretty much the stop, right? At Emeka Egbuka.
Oh no, I'd take Harrison over Rice. Sorry,
You
I
take
was going
Harrison over
backwards.
Rice. Okay.
Yep,
Lad McConkey.
it's probably right about there. Maybe Lad. I feel like between Lad and Rome, because Rome's
Okay.
next. Reading this,
Yep.
I would probably say that's about the spot. Like I think that's a good section of Lad, Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., Jamison Williams. Like that's probably where it is. Lad's the borderline. I feel like that's about where I would have had Rice anyways, barring no off the field stuff. So now he's in the back end of that tier instead of the front end of the tier. You know what I'm saying? Like I think there's still some value to be had in there. For him, just because if he's back, like, I mean, he is a top 12 guy, probably weekly. And I think I agree with you. I think it really depends on the state of the team. And I feel like every dynasty trade or dynasty value should be inherently involved in your trades, because like even on a rebuild team, like I don't know if I want to absorb Rice. Like, yes, he's younger, but like he's still going to be 26 by the time the season basically starts. And really your age decline kind of starts at 28 to 30 for receivers. He's a little bit more of a intermediate to short area guy, so maybe he can sustain it a little bit longer. But if you're like a full rebuild and you got like 3 years left, like to kind of like flip that 2 to 3 years, like I would be fine moving Rice. I think for anybody, he's almost like a contending team type of buy that you probably have the depth, like you mentioned, and you could absorb and kind of insulate. Like, okay, if he busts, like I've still got, this guy, this guy, this guy. So at least that's where I look at it. I don't think he's young in that aspect. Like he is 25 on the front side of it, but like he's also going to 26, which he's only a year or two off of like the cliff. So like, at least that's just the way I look at it. Like if I'm in a full rebuild, I'm not going to be competitive in 2 years. Like if you do it the right way, I mean, you could quickly flip it and like sell everything away and hope for the best. And sure, yeah, then you'll be back in contention. But like if you take the time to really build the roster and build it to where it could be competitive for years to come, Rice may be a piece that you could dangle and get decent value back for and kind of help build that rebuild.
Sure.
And I think, I don't know, I just feel like Rice is just very polarizing just because it's all off the field. Like we've talked about it, I mean, it is what it is, but like these other guys, like he's better than a lot of these guys that we're talking about. It's just, at least not even, I wouldn't even say better. Talent wise, I don't even know if he's that much better. I think he's just more involved in the offense and more of a focal point in a better offense than some of these other guys. It's probably where I'd go.
And with Rice, it's interesting because there's this, there's the notion like in Dynasty, right? Take Tetterello McMillan. Tetterello McMillan, one large reason that people were not nearly as high on him is because they said, you look at Jamar Chase, you look at Justin Jefferson, you look at some of these high-end dynasty assets or these fantasy assets at the wide receiver position, and people want 4.4 speed. They want the guy that's big. They want the guy that's fast. And Rashee Rice is, I mean, I don't want to say he's a possession receiver because that would really be selling him short, but he's a target monster in a really good offense attached to a top 5 play caller. I know Chiefs fans are really upset about how Andy Reid handled the offense a little bit this year. And ultimately he's attached to a great quarterback, right? So, but it's funny because you talk about the age cliff and you talk about the skill set and everything else. And, he really is kind of relying on that system to feed him targets. Now, do you think with Xavier Worthy really not blooming into what they expected, right? We're going into year 3. I think it's fair to say that's been a letdown. And ironically, not as much as of a letdown as Keon Coleman. I know a lot of people gave the Bills a lot of crap for taking Keon Coleman ahead of Xavier Worthy, but I got to tell you, man, Xavier Worthy really has not been very good. Now you can call it scheme, you can call it utilization, not being utilized correctly. It just feels like he hasn't taken that step in his game at the NFL level. But is there a world where Kelsey's retiring, Worthy's not really getting to that level that they expected? Do the Chiefs take a luxury pick in the first round and go wide receiver? I don't think that's the route that they go, but is there a world where they bring in some decent competition, not just depth, next year in 2026, in your opinion?
I think we have to see the legal system fall out. I don't think that they've never proven to care.
Sure,
Like, I mean, they're
that's
rolling with Marquise Brown and
yeah,
Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, they have Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's kind of the premise the Bills have taken this year of just like, we'll take street guys and hope for the best because we have one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I think if they take a luxury pick, it's tight end. I think if they know Kelsey's leaving, I bet you they take their shots at whether that's Kenyon Sadiq, whether it's an Eli Stowers, whether it's somebody later. Maybe they wait on somebody and go in second or third round. Tight end class is pretty deep, at least for like a receiving tight end,
sure.
where I could see them go that way. I know they like Noah Gray. Like, I think they'll bring, I don't think anything changes for Rashee Rice because not that he's like, I was not super high on Rice coming out. I don't think Rice is a truly like pure great receiver. That's why, like, even in that tier, that's why I'm at the end of the tier. Because like, I think that personally, from just physically watching him on film and everything, like, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a better receiver. I think Olave is a better receiver. I think Wilson's a better receiver. Drake London's a better receiver. I think Ladd McConkey is a better receiver. It's just because of how he's used in that offense. Not that he's a full-on possession receiver, like you said, but it's a big factor of it. That's what gets Rashee Rice. Like, he's really a yards after catch guy. He's generating a ton of touches on an offense that they run on fairly deeper type of defenses on more times than not. And he just benefits from that, and he does well. I mean, he can run routes. He doesn't not, but it's just, he's not what Jamar Chase is. He's not what Justin Jefferson is. He's not these elite guys. And that's why I even think like him producing after 30 just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I mean, he may still have some good seasons, but he does rely on the offense and the touches. And that's part of Xavier Worthy's problem as well, is because what Worthy brings to that offense is kind of a deep threat. And he's not Tyreek Hill in that aspect of where they were using Tyreek Hill so prevalently in throwing deep before teams went to the cover shells, really, whether it's 2 high, 3 high, cover 4, however they go about it. More teams now are making teams articulate down the field as opposed to being able to give up these big plays. We're seeing that transition in the offenses all over the league. And that's why run games are becoming more dominant, because now they're going with lighter boxes, trying to accommodate for the deeper threats and the more explosive offenses that were hot 5 years ago. So it's just, Worthy never seemed like a lot to me. Like, I was never in on Xavier Worthy. I thought he felt like he could have fallen into what he is. Like, he's just kind of becomes a role player with really good speed, get some gadget touches here and there. Like, yes, he can run routes. He did pretty well at Texas in that aspect, but it just wasn't enough. And it wasn't enough at the NFL level. And they've kind of pigeonholed him to that. And that's what happens in the NFL. Sometimes you just get pigeonholed, whether you can run a route or not. If this is the way you are, your size, etc., NFL offenses may say, well, this is how we want you to do it. This is why we're going that way. It was the same thing in the argument in the defense that I make against the trade with Xavier Worthy and Keon Coleman. Obviously, Coleman, it didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. But the Bills wanted a big possession receiver on the edge. They didn't want the speedy guy in Xavier Worthy. That's not who they wanted. They felt they probably had that in Khalil Shakir. And they felt they could replace a speedy outside guy in anybody off the street, whether it was KJ Hamler, like they tried, any of these guys that can run fast. Cole Hardman, like they just could find somebody off the street. So they wanted that big possession X receiver type of profile that can play all the downs and be a run blocker. Xavier Worthy wasn't that. So they're not going to take him. That's how it works. I hate to break it to everybody. That's how the NFL works. They don't draft players because they're talented. They draft them because they fit the offense and they're talented. So it depends on the direction of which it goes, So that's where, like, yes, maybe Xavier Worthy was higher on people's boards. Maybe Xavier Worthy's more explosive than Keon Coleman. Sure. But would he have worked in the Bills offense either? Probably not, because he can't block. So, like, it wouldn't have worked. It's just the same. It's the situations, I guess, when you break it down like that. But ultimately, circling it back, like, I think they probably bring somebody in with Rice but I think it's a waiting game as far as like more comes out with the legal stuff. Like, if it really gets dicey in the legal side of it, then they're bringing somebody in. If he gets completely cleared, they may just say, yeah, we're good. We'll just bring in like a tight end and take a shot at it. Rice is going to get the touches, or honestly, they could go the other route with a running back. Maybe they say, all right, we're going to shift back to just pounding the rock a little bit more. We're going to go get Jeremiah Love or Jonah Coleman and like go, okay, let's pound the rock and just feed it to Rice, kind of like that could be the route. We don't really know until we get some news about that. So I think it's a little too early to try to project that personally. So
Sure. Yeah, and I think all that's fair. Kansas City's in a really weird spot. I mean, Hollywood Brown's probably done. Travis Kelce's probably done. They're probably making a change at running back. They've got to figure out their right tackle situation. They need help on defense. So there's a lot of interesting moving pieces there. One more thing before we wrap up Rashee Rice. We'll get to some questions in the chat. We'll move on. Rashee Rice right now, if the legal scenario was not where it was possibly right now, I think Rashee Rice in startups would be valued higher, probably closer to that, Drake London area because of how many people liked him. You have Justin Jefferson, who we're going to talk about next. He's wide receiver 7, right? And he's dropped because of the situation. But with how Rice looked, if Mahomes didn't get the injury now, I mean, we're just wish casting, obviously. If no injury to Mahomes plus, no potential legal situation, I think fans and how reactionary people are and how good Rice looked for fantasy, at least, the way people are scared about Justin Jefferson's future, Rice is at 11. He's obviously dropped significantly. I think they would be even closer and possibly even going 7, 8 in startups. Rice is 11. Jefferson is 7 right now. And right now, Rice is valued between the 101 and the 102. So, yeah, I mean, if you could trade Rice for Bryce Love, I mean, and you're not in a rebuild, so to speak, I think you're feeling pretty good about that, right? Jeremiah Love. I don't know why I said Jeremiah Love. Sorry. I mean, I don't know why I said Bryce Love.
There's definitely a Bryce Love before. But
Bryce Love was a running back too, I believe.
I think so. Stanford, if I remember correctly. That's a lot. Like, if I could get 1-2 for Rashee Rice, even in this class, it's like kind of like meh. Like, I would probably do that.
And that's pretty much where he's valued at right now. And
which is wild, but I mean, you're right. Like, when you're talking about where he would fall, like, he was probably all things and wish casting it, like, even with the Mahomes injury, it's more the off the field stuff, honestly. If that off the field stuff didn't pop up, or if they came out and said today, like, that wasn't a thing, there's nothing to worry about, like, totally cleared, blah, blah, blah. I agree. I think with how he looked in the on the field numbers and statistics and data, like 100%, he's probably top 5 off of board and startup.
Which
I would think, because they're going to look at everything that we just talked about. Like Kelce might not be there. There's nobody else there. The running backs stink. Like, he's going to see a plethora of targets. So, like, I would see. I think that. And I mean, I guess that's good value. I guess then at 11, but it's still too risky for me.
It just goes to show how quickly things change, though. I mean, things change so fast. In fantasy, Philip came in and said he traded Rice for Jefferson in the playoffs. I mean, I would say both of us would agree that that's a pretty good trade. He gets Jefferson, he gives up Rice. Yeah. Jefferson's going to age better. When we talk about age, he's a year older, and the quarterback situation's murky. But look at Chris Olave, right? Chris Olave has a great year. I don't want to blow my load on the Jefferson talk, so we'll get to it because he's one of the other players we're going to talk about. But I do want to get to 2 other questions here, and then we'll move over to the next player. Joey Brown said, Dynasty trade offer I received. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt for Quentin Johnston, probably wide receiver 5 on my team. This is one of those I'd probably take Quentin Johnston here. Don't get me wrong. Like, I get it. There's a coordinator change, but look, Jeremy or Popes, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, I mean, he couldn't beat out Chris Rodriguez. And yes, I know he looked good in the Dallas game and people are going to sit there and point to it, but they almost didn't want to put him on the field. I don't know what your thoughts are on Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, but and don't get me wrong, they did just move off of Cliff, who did value the older veterans. So maybe there's a shift in the younger guy goes with the younger players, but who the heck knows that the new OC is going to care about Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, who was a late draft pick, who doesn't have a lot of draft capital. They're probably bringing competition at the running back position. That team brought in a ton of the top running backs in last year's class for visits, and they obviously didn't land them. So they were looking at running back even before they drafted Merritt. They had Eckler Brian Robinson was traded. So they wanted to upgrade that room, and they barely played the quote unquote upgrade in Ja'Cory when they traded B-Rob. So I would take Quentin Johnston here. I'm not the biggest Quentin Johnston fan, but he's looked solid this year. And I would just take the guy that to me profiles as a guy that he's going to be in the league longer. And he has way more draft capital, and he's taken steps forward. I haven't seen anything from Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara to merit me taking him over QJ here, and I'm not even a big QJ fan. So,
gotta love the wordplay. I'm on the other side. I think that Quentin Johnston is Quentin Johnston. I had people asking me when he was breaking out earlier. I guess you could argue the breakout in the first half of the season, and they were giving up some crazy stuff or getting offers for some crazy stuff, and I'm like, no, it's not. He's gonna level back out. He's Quentin Johnston. Like he's not good. he's good, but he's not. He wasn't what he was in that first half of the season. Like that's just not Quentin Johnston. You know, you saw Lad McConkey be down. Like the offense in general, they want to run the football. Once O'Marion Hampton's probably healthy, they're going to pound the rock with Greg Roman. That's just how it works.
Whoa, Greg's gone though.
Did they?
About this year?
Did I miss that?
Greg's gone.
Why would they do that? That's so terrible. But either way, I missed that apparently. I don't know. I must be living on a rock here. But either way, they're still going to want to run the ball. That's just kind of even in the MO. They're going to go ahead and try to move the football that way. They've got Lad McConkey in there, who's going to be their focal point moving forward, you would expect for a majority of it. Quentin Johnston may play the X. They brought in Trey Harris, who can easily also play out on the perimeter once he gets going. It was a slow rookie season, but it wasn't great. But it should get better. He profiled pretty well out of Ole Miss there. So I personally think Cross-Kamara's the better play. I think that the running back class is a little weak. I think Washington may bring somebody in. Cross-Kamara to me showed just enough. I mean, yes, he didn't beat out Chris Rodriguez, but it was a little bit of a different style. Also, Chris Rodriguez is pretty good. All right. I loved him in Kentucky. He's a solid downhill runner, kind of does what they wanted. For me, not that Cross-Kamara, I don't believe in either of them. I just prefer to the running back here because I would never see myself going, yeah, I'm going to plug Quentin Johnston in and feel great about that in my lineup. Where hypothetically, let's say they bring somebody in, but they get injured, and now it's Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara going to start the game. We saw it in the Dallas game. We saw it in the games where he got opportunities. He was still productive in that offense. So to me, the value of both of these is short term. Like Quentin Johnston, he might be in the league longer, but like at no point am I really feeling comfortable plugging Quentin Johnston in unless he's on a tear like he was earlier in the season. And even at that point, I'd be hovering over it saying, this could be the bust week. So for me, I value my players a little bit in that aspect as well. Like, would I feel comfortable starting them? So as the manager of either of these players, like, who do you feel like you're going to be comfortable starting? Like, are you going to really put Quentin Johnston in your lineup? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you feel like you would, then maybe it's worth the value.
Let me stop you. So I don't like either of these guys. So let me just say that. Okay. I don't like either.
I mean, I get it.
Okay. Now, looking at the startup ADP, at least, because I prefer startup ADP over keep trade cut. I think it's people putting their money where their mouth is, right? Like people are drafting.
Yeah.
Like to me, I find it more valuable. Right now, startup ADP has Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara a little bit behind Quentin Johnston. He's valued between the 203 and the 204. Quentin Johnston's valued between the 201 and the 202. Now, guys like Rashal Tootin, for example, if I could move Johnston for Tootin, who is valued actually behind Johnston and ahead of Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara slightly, RB35, RB29, I would much rather do that. I know this is a weaker class in general, but I wouldn't mind rolling the dice on, say, moving QJ, for, maybe a Caleb Johnson and another pick, right? Like Caleb Johnson, who's valued at running back 40, but I'd rather take a chance on maybe a Caleb Johnson and a third rounder over just a Ja'Cory for Quentin straight up swap. Like that's kind of my thought there. Like I don't mind moving QJ because I don't love him. And honestly, if you could get the 201 for him or the 202, like I'll gladly take that as well. That's fine. Even in a weak class, I'd be fine re-rolling the dice there. But I would much rather just try to swing at like a Tootin, a Bayshall, a Blake Corum who's behind him, who's arguably a top 3 handcuff in Dynasty. That would be the route that I would take. But I get your point with Ja'Cory. Like, it's a weak running back class. They're probably going to bring competition, and who knows how good the competition is going to be, right? So, and guy gets injured, running back gets thrust into starting role. He's young. They clearly care about him enough to keep him, and they moved off of B-Rob. I'm just not sold on him. I would just rather go a different route if I was going to trade QJ. But that's me personally.
I mean, that's fair. I would take all those other guys too. I didn't realize that people have them valued that far. I don't think, like, if you offered me Quentin Johnston for Bashal Tootin, like,
I wouldn't take it.
Kind of like, I'd just kind of chuckle and be like, yeah. So it's weird that they're valued like that. It's kind of weird to me. Even Blake Corum, that's pretty wild.
Maybe people are buying into Travis Etienne re-signing, but they're going to use multiple backs in Liam Cohen's offense anyway. So I don't know. People are weird, man. Let's go to one more trade here by Spock, and then we'll move on to the next player. Spock said traded Bryce Young plus the 209 plus the 212 for Jared Goff. Is this an overpay? It depends. Look, Jeremy, I don't know where you feel about Bryce. I'm not the biggest believer in him. I know he had a good game against the Rams. I know people are kind of buying in. They picked up his option, which was a good sign for him. But I guess I'd probably take Bryce in the picks if I was a rebuilder 2 years away, taking a chance on maybe Bryce figures it out, though I'm not the biggest believer, but I'm also intrigued by the picks. I do love Jared Goff in general. If you're a competitor and you're looking to compete, I mean, I think he's going to continue to give us top 12 play for the next year or two. Amon-Ra St. Brown ain't going anywhere. Neither is Jameson Williams. Laporte, neither. Gibbs is there. Like, you got at least a 2-year window with Goff of still staying competitive. I don't think his skill set just falls off. So for your contender, I'm totally good with this. I'm just not a big Bryce Young believer. But if you're 2 years from competing, I'll take the role on Bryce, but maybe look for somebody better if I'm moving Goff, but you might not be able to get that. So if that's the best you can get, I'm okay taking that chance. Or holding Goff for maybe if you can wait and you're a rebuilder, maybe you hold Goff up until week 1, week 2-ish, and you move him in season if you have the depth. But if you're that would be the route I would go. How do you look at this? Are you a Bryce Young believer?
No, I'm indifferent. Don't really have a real hard lean on Bryce Young. He's a mid-tiered quarterback too. Similarly to Goff. Like, I kind of feel like Goff's a little higher, just older.
Sure.
More reliable. You kind of know what he is. I mean, the offense looked atrocious for the Lions. Hopefully they figured that out this offseason. But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. I don't think it's really an overpay. So when you look at rookie picks, I haven't done this year's yet, but up until this year, from 2020 to 2024, second round picks hit on an average of 28%. And that's using quarterbacks above, like, the top 24 quarterbacks, top 36 running backs, top 48 wide receivers, top 12 tight ends, 28%. And the only real viable positions, tight end, that hit like 55%. The rest are all sub 24%. So, like, the picks are pretty useless to me, especially in a weak class. It falls off heavily. Like 2.9, 2.12 this year, you're gonna be hoping that you're hoping something happens, but it's unlikely. They're probably all going to be roster cloggers at some point by the looks of what this class is, So I don't think it's an overpay. On the surface, sure, it looks like it. 2 seconds and Bryce for Goff. Yeah, I'm sure people look at that and go, "Whoa." But, like, when rookie draft season comes and you actually are on the draft and, like, the clock's up, like 2.9, 2.12, I think personally I'd have a struggle. Like, there's some players I like, but, like, they're like huge dart throws. So it's like, I don't think so. I think you're fine. I think it's
context.
Yeah, I think it's safe. I think he's fine. I don't think it's really an overpay. I think that there's a good chance Bryce Young doesn't, even though they picked his option up, it's probably because the quarterback class is terrible. They're going to hold out till next year.
Yeah.
And Bryce could be replaced in 2027. So,
well, he said he's the back-to-back champ, and he said that he had, prior to this, it was Caleb, Kyler, Fields, Jacoby Brissett. It's a bad quarterback class. You're back-to-back champ. He still has CMC, JT, Henry, Monty. So that running back room is a little bit old, but yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine. You're back-to-back champ. He's got Puka, he's got Rice, he's got Chase. This is McBride and Fannin is a team that can definitely compete again, even though you're back-to-back. So that shores up at least your Jared Goff as your QB2 is totally fine. I mean, he's been top 14 in points per game the last 4 years, 13 last year, averaging 17.9. I mean, he's been good. And like you said, you know what you're getting. So, and you got to hope hey, Mike McDaniels goes there and they get an upgrade there at OC, that'd be pretty awesome.
If they get an OC instead of Dan Gamble.
Well, it's not going to be Dan. I would hope it's not Dan Campbell again. But yeah, let's move on to our next player here, and it's going to be Justin Jefferson. We talked about him a little bit. Justin Jefferson has been traded 264. He's actually the fourth most traded, but it's the second guy we're going to talk about because, as I mentioned, right, BTJ and Marv were 2 and 3. We talked about them last week. But this is a guy that's coming off his worst season of his career. He's 26.6 years old, so 7 by the start of this. Actually, technically, 27 by the start of this year. 11.9 points per game this year, 28th in the NFL. He was 7th in target share. And I mean, look, there's no sugarcoating it. It was a tough year for Justin Jefferson. I think there's some positives to this, though, which Jefferson, I mean, it's not like he dropped off from a skill set standpoint, target share wise. He was 7th in the NFL in target share. He was 6th in total targets. So the volume was there. It's really just the fact that the targets were just not the best. And we talked about, Chris Olave a little bit before, when talking about, bad players sometimes in bad situations still kind of rise above it. And that's Justin Jefferson. If there's a guy I'm making a bet on right now, it's Justin Jefferson. He's getting, especially from even in redraft, he's going to be probably the cheapest we've ever seen him, Jeremy, in redraft this year. And I'm looking at Jefferson right now. He's wide receiver 7, on per current startups at the moment. We talked about him a little bit, but he goes ahead of Drake London right now and behind CeeDee Lamb, behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you got the big 4, Jamar Chase, JSN, Puka, and Neighbors. Again, quick how things change. JSN now inserts himself as a top 3 guy. CeeDee Lamb was up there with Chase and Jefferson last year. You could argue maybe Lamb was 4, Neighbors was 3, but you just see these rankings rotate. It's a fun exercise to have. Jefferson has a down year, but Kevin O'Connell is not going anywhere. I expect them to bring in a veteran. I don't know who that's going to be, but I expect the quarterback play to be a little bit better. We know the volume's there. Jefferson's a buy for me. I usually talk about, is it a buy, is it a sell as a whole at the end when we kind of collect our thoughts about it. But I'll just say it straight up. I mean, he's a buy for me at wide receiver 7. If you're telling me that, I can go give up the 101 for Jefferson and get him straight up, I would do that right now. It might take a little bit more than that. Of course, maybe a 101 and maybe even a late first. I would still do that as well. I mean, this is a guy, you talked about Rashee Rice's skill set dropping off. I don't see that with a player like Justin Jefferson as he gets older. And really that's all there is to it for me. I mean, we know that he had bad quarterback play last year. That's not the norm in terms of his play from a fantasy aspect. And I expect it to get better. I don't know how they're going to do it. I got to hope that they figure it out, but I'll bet on the talent here with Jefferson, and he's a buy for me, at his current cost.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned it a little bit with the target volume, as well as going even a little deeper with end zone targets. He was 3rd with 17 end zone targets, according to FTN Fantasy here, and he is the only player in the top 10 outside of Tet McMillan and Cortland Sutton, who are 8 and 9 in end zone targets, to score under 20 fantasy points per game last season. And his was the lowest outside of Tet at 15.4. So there's huge regression in the other way, as he only scored on 2 of those 17 targets last year. So it's It's big. And I mean, honestly, Devontae Adams was one with like 30, and like he was kind of an end zone merchant and like kind of like broke the chart in comparison. So like he's kind of two of normal wide receivers outside of just basically Devontae Adams. So yeah, I think that Jefferson right now is a huge buy, like you said, huge value. Um, I'm fine with him at 7, like you said. I think same thing. I can just echo what you said. The big thing with him is the concern of the quarterback play. You know, who's it going to be? If it is JJ McCarthy, is it any better? Is it worse? You know, so that's a concern. But no matter my roster, I would be trying to get Justin Jefferson. Especially honestly, if I'm a contender or like a mid-tier team, and I can give up with like a mid-first and a second, or a mid-first and like honestly a mid-first and maybe a Emeka Egbuka, who people were hot on for a bit, like something like that. Like, cool, I'm in on that. You know, to go get Jefferson as my wide receiver 3 right now because the value is down, and then when that value comes back up, you know, you're gonna have a top 5 guy once the quarterback playing ensues to get better, which is only a matter of time. The Vikings aren't going to sit there with McCarthy and say, yeah, we're cool, we're going to let this happen. I think they move on quicker than if he doesn't show signs of progress.
This is a Vikings roster that's one of the oldest in the NFL this year, at least. Now there's going to be some guys that retire. Harris Smith probably not coming back. CJ Ham, there's some Kelly as well. So there's age on this roster, but this is not a team that's going to sit by and just, to me, like go through the growing pains of JJ if he's not getting better and they're not winning games. Let me ask you a question. I traded Devon Achane on a team that was pretty much rebuilding, kind of not a complete teardown. Retooling would be the best way. But I traded Achane for Jefferson. I gave up Achane and an early third for Justin Jefferson. Now, this is a pretty close comparison. Achane's actually valued 2 spots behind Jefferson in startups. But, forgetting roster, rebuild, contender, let's just in a vacuum. Jefferson for Achane. Achane loses Mike McDaniels. Are you worried a little bit about, how his usage could change with Achane? I know we're shifting players here a little bit. And would you feel comfortable? Who would you prefer? Jefferson, Achane, if you had to kick in an early third, or does the third not matter? Are you taking Achane? Like, what side do you prefer in a vacuum?
Oh, Jefferson. I'm a notorious Devon Achane disliker. Productive player. He's definitely done more than I thought he would do. But yeah, I don't like I feel like he's benefited from Tua just being Tua. So depending on who comes in, quarterback changes, I think you could see a little bit of a fall off from Achane, a guy that also being in smaller stature, he's held up fairly well, but has his injury concerns, really predicated on speed. He's got quick feet. I mean, he's a very good running back. He is. It's just really was always the size with him. So the concern with that though is long-term durability. And if I have the choice between similar valued players, I tend to lean to the wide receiver as long as they're not, ancient, and Jefferson's not ancient. So I'm fine with it. A guy that's going to play well past 30 and be very productive. So I'm cool with that. I would take Jefferson straight up for Achane. I wouldn't even, or I would kick in the third. Like I'd be fine with that 100%.
Yeah.
If I had to, if I was like the contender, I'd even go like 212 and Achane for Jefferson. I would do it. I don't think too much about it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good deal for me. So I'm glad to hear that you liked it as well. I guess one thing about Achane, and then I'm going to show a couple of trades with Jefferson and move on to the next player. With Achane, I guess part of the concern is smaller back, and they used him a lot in the red zone and at the goal line too. Does a new coach, like, number one, you got to hope that the new coach is creative enough to, manufacture touches for Achane in the pass game. Now, the good thing about him is he can do a lot with a little, but this isn't Jahmyr Gibbs a lot with a little where, hey, he's splitting time with, David Montgomery, and, Gibbs is just so good. Like, Gibbs is more of a well-rounded back than Achane is, much also bigger in size. I don't know how much bigger, but he's bigger. And so I just worry whoever comes in, you got to hope they bring an offensive-minded coach in. And if not, there's a possibility that the OC could come in. And if the team's good, there's a rotation in OC, and that could change scheme. And there's all those concerns and questions. The the bow on it is Mike McDaniel's leaving is a hit to Devon Achane, no matter how you look at it. And that's just the truth. Let's take a look at some of the trades on Dynasty Daddy for Justin Jefferson. I mean, right here, Popes 106, 104. I would take Justin Jefferson over the 106, 104. Now, depends how you like some of these wide receivers in this class, right? If you like Lemon, if you like Tate, if you like Tyson, right? And then, you're possibly looking, I think Mendoza, because Moore doesn't come out, Mendoza's pushing up to at least top 3. I had him somewhere around 5, but with Moore not coming out and the scarcity of the position in a super flex, I think Mendoza's probably locked into that top 3 now. So you're probably looking at, the person, most leagues picking between the landing spot of Lemon and Tate and Tyson, one of those guys, and then getting your pick between one of those 2 wide receivers, and then maybe at 106 you're getting Sadiq. Who knows, right? It's so far out to project, but the point is, I would take Justin Jefferson in a heartbeat here still at his age over the 104, 106 in a class that's still kind of murky. What about you? I mean, do you think 104, 106 is do you love the guys in those range that you're projecting to be there? I mean, I know you're a big guy in the film and big when it comes to rookies and breaking down college tape. I mean, do you feel conviction over that top 6 of who you might get there, or is it Justin Jefferson comfortably for you?
I'm taking Jefferson. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at guys, like you said, you might have Kevin Concepcion, you might have Denzel Boston in that territory. Like you said, Mendoza probably gets pushed up ultimately when it's all said and done into the top 4. I think you probably have, if I had to sit here today, at least where my rankings are, it's probably Love, Tyson, Coleman, Mendoza, if Coleman gets good draft capital at the running back position. And then you probably have, for me at least, it's Lemon over Tate. And then, so you're probably looking at those guys and you're hoping that one of them becomes Justin Jefferson. And we've seen it where that doesn't happen. I mean, look at Emeka Egbuka this year, like exploded and then disappeared. So the profiles behind these guys analytically and the tape's pretty good for most of them, but analytically, a lot of them don't hit thresholds of like the last few classes of being really fantasy viable. So there's concern. I just think this class is a lot of like decent players, not great players. So for me, I'd take Jefferson. I think, you have that chance of having 2 really good players. But I'd rather just take the slam dunk in Jefferson that we already know who he is. That was just a year of badness because of a poor quarterback play. That's not going to stick in the NFL. That will quickly replace JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. And I think just looking at some of these picks, I mean, Jefferson, this really depends on where the 2027 picks are. I mean, if you're telling me it's Harvey, but even if you're getting Harvey and you're moving Jefferson and you're getting 2 picks in 2027, your Harvey's. I hated the arguments on Harvey being too old and yada yada yada. But if we're talking about 2 years from now, Harvey, I don't know how he helps you if this is a rebuilding team, which it probably is, if they're shooting for 2 picks in 2027, which is a better class. We don't know how high those picks are, but I mean, Jefferson, I don't love that deal. If you're getting Harvey, depending on how high the 2027 picks are, obviously it's projecting to be a much better class. Just looking at some of these trades here, I don't love to look into the minutia and like too much here. I mean, AJ Brown, 2027 first, 2027 second. I would still take Jefferson and Kittle. I'm not in love with Kittle after that injury, which kind of sucks. But I mean, unless that's a really, really high first round pick in 2027, maybe I entertain it. But AJ's regressing. Maybe he gets a really good landing spot in a trade this year. But I have a feeling he's going to stay in Philly. I know a lot of people think he's going to get moved and want him to get moved, but I don't think that's happening. This is interesting. Let's talk about this one, maybe, Popes, and then we'll move on. Cam Scatterbo, Justin Jefferson, Kyron Williams for the 101. So you're pretty much locking in Love unless you need Mendoza, and you're pushing up the quarterback. The 104 and a 2027 first-round pick. Let's assume it's a high first-round pick. This is something you could flirt with a little bit, but it's also a lot. I hate going over trades like this if I don't know where this pick is here. But this is a little bit closer than I would say the other ones are, just because you're getting the one-on-one here. It's a high first here in 2026, and I'm assuming this 2027 is going to be high too. It's a little bit closer, but man, I think I still go with Jefferson.
Yeah, I think I'd honestly take the picks on this one.
Okay.
Potentially. I really like Jeremiah
Yeah.
Love. I think that he's a rock star as far as that goes, outside of injuries or anything like that. Significantly better than Scadaboo. Scadaboo's a fun story, but like he's
Sure.
stay. Oh my god, his play style doesn't project to be very long in the NFL. Kyren Williams is kind of really becoming a committee back in a way. Still very productive, still very good, but like in a year from now, like who knows how much more Blake Corum works into it. So big question marks there. Still like Kyren Williams, but the upside of 101 and 104, like 104, if it's super flex, you think you're saying Love at 1, we'll say Mendoza at 2, maybe someone takes Tyson at 3. Like you got your pick of Tate and Lemon at 4. Like, that's nice. And then 2027, in which, as long as everybody declares, is a pretty deep class, considering if it goes super flex, you're probably gonna have a lot of quarterbacks. It's going to push a lot of the good receivers down as well. So you're probably looking at, honestly, even the quarterbacks will get pushed back. You're probably going to have, 2 potentially really rock star receivers, and then you're going to have potentially 2 really good quarterbacks, if not more. We see that can change very quickly at the collegiate level, but really projects a pretty deep class. So I think I would go there, especially if I'm rebuilding.
Sure.
Like, I'm taking those picks. Like, Jefferson's great, but he's like the only piece I want on that other side right now.
Yeah, and look, Corum, like you said,
just because like 1-1 and 1-4, like your 2 top 5 picks locked in this year, and I'm comfortable with the top 5 in this class. Like I think 5-6, like 5-6, like 6-7 is where you start to get a little dicey, So like I think that insulates it enough for me that I would go the pick route, I think.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's fair, talking through it. I can definitely see going the picks there as well. Let's move over
who even
to
knows if you like go Love at 1, and like if nobody else needs a quarterback, you might get Love and Mendoza. Like,
you could get lucky. Yeah, no, you absolutely could. And honestly, I think the big deal breaker is how high is that first round pick. Now, if we're talking it's a late first, I think I still stick with JJ. Now if you're talking, hey, it's a hard rebuild, yeah, I'm okay with it then. I mean, because at the 104, you're re-rolling the dice on some really good receivers there too. Now, I mean, projecting them to be Jefferson is kind of crazy. I'm not saying that, but to get Love to re-roll on one of those receivers, I actually really like Boston too. You mentioned him before. I was talking to Wyatt about him. Even if you have to get him at like the 106 area, a 106 to 108, I think he's going to be pretty high on my board. I didn't love Coleman. We'll talk offline on some of the prospects. I liked Coleman's tape last year more than I liked it this year. I just didn't feel like he moved me enough when watching the tape. I liked some other guys a little bit better. But we'll talk about that offline. Let's go ahead and move over to our next player, and it's going to be Ladd McConkey. We talked about Ladd McConkey a little bit before. Ladd McConkey, I mean, this was a sophomore slump, as slumpy as it gets. He was the second pick in 2024's class in the second round. 24 years old, just turned 24, so he's still really young. 11.3 points per game. He went down in targets this year. He had 112 his rookie season, only 107 this year. And there was a drop off, right? I mean, I think it just never felt like him and Justin Herbert got on the same level or connection this year. There's that clip that's gone around about the Patriots game where, I mean, first possession, Justin Herbert completely misses Ladd on a rollout where it probably would have been a big touchdown. It felt like it had to do with the other factors on the offense than it had to do with Ladd and his play and his ability to me. Obviously losing both tackles was huge. It's a run first offense with Greg Roman leaving. I think that gonna hopefully they're gonna upgrade there, but they're still going to be a team that likes to run with Harbaugh, with a good defense. Now Minter might be leaving as well, so they might lose both coordinators. But either way, Lad's a buy for me, and it seems like you're not that high on Lad McConkey, just based on kind of how we talked about Rice, and you that was definitely your hard stop there, where you said, yeah, no, I'm taking Rice over Lad, which I would take Rice over Lad too. So don't hear me wrong there. But where? I mean, is he a guy that you believe in? Do you think this was just a down year? I mean, Keenan Allen also coming in was a huge factor as well. I think he's going to be gone. There are some other pieces in this offense. Trey Harris, KSL. You have Quentin Johnston, who we both talked about. We don't really love. What do you make of Lad? I mean, can he return to what we saw his rookie year? Is there so many changes, too much talent infusion in the offense? Run first, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. The truth is, he's not going to be as good as he was his rookie year. He's not going to be as bad as he was this year. Somewhere in the middle. Where do you see him?
So he feels a little Jalen Waddle-esque to me. Kind of like that rookie breakout and then just fades out a bit. Keenan Allen was the main piece of this puzzle that needs to be deciphered. The O-line probably plays a big factor, but when Herbert was in a hurry and wanted to get rid of the football, he wanted to find Keenan Allen. If Keenan Allen wasn't open, it turned ugly, and he wasn't really looking elsewhere. He was trying to scramble, just making poor decisions. So now, do I think what we saw this year is probably indicative of future things? Probably not. I think that Lad McConkey probably still is a decent wide receiver too. I think where he's valued is adequate here. Where you're talking about wide receiver 17, but Oronde Gaddiston kind of coming on doesn't help Lad McConkey either, kind of operating in that similar of the territories, middle of the field type of territory where Lad is. And as much as Lad can kind of play outside, he's been kind of pigeonholed in this offense a little bit to the inside. And if they're going to get QJ going more on the perimeter, if they want to get Trey Harris more involved on the perimeter as well, we could see Lad McConkey kind of just have a lot of mouths to feed in a low volume passing attack. That's just the math of it. That just isn't really there to be like a wide receiver one ever again, potentially, depending on who comes in as OC, depending on their philosophy. Obviously, Herbert getting hurt doesn't help either, but even when he was healthy, like it was still, they were looking a little bit more of like the explosive plays deep down the field to Quentin Johnston off play action. And the underneath stuff was Keenan Allen. And maybe once Keenan Allen's gone, that opens up the door again for Lad McConkey to see more viability. But Gadsden coming on, I don't think is great. Like we said, they're going to want to run the ball more with Hampton. You're going to see more dump offs to Hampton as well, a pretty good receiver as well. So I think he's adequately priced. I think I'm fine if you want to trade him. I think I'm fine if you want to buy him. I think I'm fine if you want to hold him. I just really feel like he is what he is. He's a wide receiver too. He didn't literally live up to that this year. But that's what he is. He's a mid to low tiered wide receiver too, in a low volume passing attack. If they go back to throwing the ball all over the yard, which I don't think they'll ever really have to do with Harbaugh and what they're building in the defensive side, then maybe it changes, but I don't see it. I think they're going to be a team that wants to run the ball, like you said, play from ahead, and just have a lights out defense, and live off of a low volume passing attack and limited touches for all the receivers, which unfortunately caps McConkey, but still could be the guy in the future. Just not enough volume for me to push him into that same tier as like the top 15 personally for me. So.
Yeah, this offense, this was a really strange year for the Chargers. Of course, O-line injuries, Justin Herbert gets hurt. Obviously, all of that comes into play. But the one silver lining that I look at when it comes to their passing volume is pass rate over expected. This was a team that was at the top of the league for the first 7 weeks of the year. So they passed in a lot of situations where the analytics say you should run the football. So that was encouraging. Now, it's really a big question mark to me, I think Keenan Allen's gone, right? I think he's gone. I think if they're smart, they don't want, you invested in Trey Harris, KLS looked really good in preseason. You had, and in the training camp, you had all this hype around him. You have Quentin Johnston. You invested heavy capital. There's no reason for Keenan Allen to be on this team. Honestly, I just, to me, you're hindering the guys that you put capital into. You know what Keenan Allen is. He's a security blanket, but if you trust your scouting, if you trust what you've made investments into, you give those guys a chance to grow in this offense, in my opinion. Especially if you're going to be run first, right? Like, you don't have to rely on those guys nearly as much. But it's a huge factor of, to me, the most important thing is who they're bringing at OC, right? Is it a guy that can bring in more balance, right? I don't think Mike McDaniels is in the cards. At least I haven't seen that being rumored. And obviously that's the guy that everyone continues to talk about because it just feels like the most obvious name, because, he's fired. When he talks about run game, if you want an offense to run the football effectively, McDaniels would be a really nice fit here, right? Especially for what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. But I don't even know if I haven't seen anything. I think the Roman thing is so early. Maybe McDaniels gets a look, but he's also interviewing for head coaching jobs first. So
I'd also have to see like the offensive lineman. I don't remember exactly who's in at their offensive lineman, but like McDaniel is a zone scheme type of guy, and I don't know how athletic, because Roman, if I remember, is kind of more interior and gap. I haven't looked at the numbers off the top of my head to see what they ran last year.
He is more gap scheme,
but depending on their athleticism at offensive line, like McDaniel might not actually be the best fit for their run game.
Yeah,
but,
could he? I mean, and you also factor in Slater with the patella tendon. Like, how does his movement look, in a zone scheme too? I don't remember what the injury was for the other big boy that they just drafted recently.
I don't remember.
I don't remember what it was either.
I don't remember. Knee?
Maybe it was knee. It might have been knee, but
I think it was knee, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, with Ladd,
who cares about offensive linemen, right? No.
with Ladd McConkey, I think you hit on the head, right? He's not going to be a wide receiver, a high-end wide receiver. Look, he could very well give you flirt with wide receiver 10 to 12 numbers in any given year, in my opinion. I think he's talented enough if things go right. But he's never going to – I don't think he's going to give you a top 5 finish. And there's guys around him that you could make the argument could. Like, BTJ has the kind of talent where, yes, it was a down year. They have pieces around him. But if he can elevate himself again and he can get a connection, you can see it just from a talent perspective. Maybe not situationally, but from a talent perspective, right? You look at Luther Burden, right, who's the hot name right now that everybody's talking about, right? And Roma Dunze, those two guys, like, talent-wise, the ceilings are high.
See, I'd take Ladd over Burden.
I would take Ladd over Burden too. I think the steam on Burden's a little much.
Considering like Roma Dunze is still hurt. Like, he's playing, but he's hurt. Like,
but there's also no guarantee that they move off DJ Moore. I mean, DJ Moore was the biggest player in the biggest moments for them this year, and contract wise, they would have to eat a lot of guaranteed money to move him. There's no guarantee DJ Moore is gone. I mean, everybody's just assuming it. But, I mean, he had the huge catch to beat the Packers in the regular season on the walk-off, and he had a massive game this year, right? I know his usage was a little bit weird, and for a guy making a ton of money to be that kind of like guy, like card out of your back pocket that you pull out and like he should be more involved on a week in, week out basis. But there's no guarantee that DJ Moore is just not going to be on this offense next year.
Yeah, I think everybody just sees Luther Burden. They see the gadgety type of player. They see Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they want to make it that because it's Ben Johnson, and it's all script. That drives dynasty value. It's what you can talk yourself into. Was a high ankle sprain for Joe Alt?
It was a high ankle sprain.
Wait, wasn't he back?
It became no. Campbell came back for the Patriots. You might be thinking of him. Awesome. Did get the ankle sprain. He came back, and then I think he ended up getting something else. I don't know what it was, but I know he wasn't.
We got the internet here. I'll look it up.
Why don't you look it up? But yeah, I mean, when you talk about Lad McConkey, I think the huge thing here is just going to be, who do they bring in? I think Lad McConkey for me is a buy right now. Ultimately, we can look at some trades here. Tyler Warren, Lad McConkey, Terrence Ferguson. I love Tyler Warren. If it's not tight end premium, I'm taking Lad McConkey there. I like Tyler Warren. There's a lot of depth. I think tight end is such a volatile position. I would take Lad McConkey over Tyler Warren. I know the ceiling athletically, Warren's probably a better athletic profile, but I would take Lad. I just don't value tight ends nearly as high as some do. Now, Lad McConkey in the 106 for Trey McBride. Yeah, I would take Trey McBride there, but I know Trey McBride's an absolute stud, and the toothpaste ain't going back in a tube with him. I mean, no matter who they bring in for quarterback, OC, I'll take Trey McBride over Lad in the 106 there.
Unless it's Kyler Murray. It was a high ankle sprain, by the way. It was just a very, very severe high ankle sprain / fracture. But it was week 9. So like it needed some type of surgery, so that's why it was season ending. So it was week 9.
The fracture part of that is important to know.
But yeah, I mean, I would take honestly that deal for Warren, for Lad McConkey and Ferguson. Like that's a pretty good deal because like Terrence Ferguson's got some hot steam going in there for the Rams. He's looked really good. Like there's a chance Ferguson's just a few spots down from Tyler Warren in the coming seasons, and you get Lad McConkey. So yeah, I would take that. I'm also like I like Tyler Warren, but like I'm not like pounding the drum for Tyler Warren. So
what you just said is the exact reason why I just don't value tight ends as nearly as high. I mean, we're talking about Tyler Warren, first round pick. Everyone was blowing their load over this guy for the first half of the season, and you're telling me there's a chance that Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon, who didn't do much this year, could be valued close to him. But that's just, Dallas Goedert was number 6 points per game this year. Zach Ertz the year before. You had Harold Fannin Jr., a rookie that came on. Like, it's such a volatile position that, unless you're like a Trey McBride or a Brock Bowers, like I just don't value. Let me ask you this, and then we'll move on to, we have a question, and then we'll move on to the next player. Harold Fannin Jr., if it's not tight end premium, are you giving up a first round pick for Harold Fannin Jr.? Maybe you say in this class it's a little weak, at the end of the first. But no, I mean, I just situationally, I love the talent over situation. I'm usually in that boat as well. But I mean, we talk about how many good players or how many good tight ends there are right now. Like, unless it's tight end premium, I just can't justify giving up a first for Harold Fannin, who we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. Stefanski's now gone. That offensive line is aging and it could be an absolute disaster. We have no idea what that situation is, and there's a lot
that may have like no run game depending on where Judkins is and coming back. Should be back, but like who knows what he's going to be? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no,
yeah. There's just a lot of guys even behind him. Like if you could flip Fannin for Tucker Kraft and a 2, I would do that. I mean,
I would
it's just
Fannin for Tucker Kraft straight up. And I don't even like Tucker Kraft.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a huge Fannin guy either. I just think, again, the position's very volatile. I think he benefited from a lot of like the dump offs in that offense and stuff. Like they've still got Jerry Jeudy. Isaiah Bond showed some things. They got Cedric Tillman. Like there's some pieces in that offense that they could throw the ball to outside of the tight end. Just their quarterbacks hindered that heavily for most of the season. So I think if they get a legitimate NFL quarterback in there, like they'll be better. And I don't think Shedeur Sanders is the answer personally. I mean, he did some good things. He won games for us that Browns quarterbacks don't do. But
sure?
I mean, I just think that they probably go elsewhere at quarterback, and maybe not. Maybe they give him another shot. But if they do, then
I think it's going to be Watson, and I think it's going to be Shedeur.
I really think that's probably their route. They're looking at it like we paid Watson how much money, and like we're going to make him play. So I think that's probably what they're hoping for, and hoping a new coach, new OC can kind of maybe right the ship a bit there with Watson. So
Yeah, that's my vibe too. All right, we got two more players to talk about, and then we'll get out of here. We do have a question from Julian. Said, "Who's a wide receiver you can add for a second rounder?" I feel like the guy is Michael Wilson. Are there other names? My wide receivers are Mika, Brian Thomas Jr., and Ricky Pearsall. I mean, yeah, if Ricky's your wide receiver, I was huge, very high on him. If he's healthy in this offense, he's gonna be good. So I like Ricky. I might have just cut out there. So if I did, I apologize. I like Ricky. I just worry about the health with him and being your wide receiver 3. There's question marks between Thomas. Obviously, Egbuka slowed down a little bit. If you're looking at a player to get, I don't mind taking a shot on Michael Wilson, though you're probably overpaying for him right now, just given the helium around him at the moment. Some guys that are kind of, I mean, it depends on what you're looking at. I think Christian Watson's a good buy. I would take a chance on Christian Watson right now if you're competing. It all depends on what your window is. If this is a competing team, I have Christian Watson as a buy. I like him. The metrics were really good for him. I broke him down last week. He's wide receiver 38. He's valued between the 201 and the 202. You might be able to get him, honestly, get him for, a 203, 204 wouldn't surprise me. Maybe it all depends if you're a contender or not. I mean, I'm not taking shots on Matthew Golden, really. I don't know what you feel about him, Popes. I didn't really love his college profile. I don't like the situation there. Both obviously guys. I like Parker Washington, but it depends. I'm not paying anything higher than a 207 probably for Parker. You could take a shot on Brandon Ayuk. Depending on your risk tolerance there, that might be a decent buy if he's your wide receiver 4 and you're just taking a chance on him. Maybe Trey Harris could be the answer here, who's slotted about at 207 is about his value right now. Trey Harris is kind of a comfortable shot if you want to take it. I know we just talked about the Chargers and that offense and all the mouths to feed, but I like the talent profile there. I wouldn't mind taking a chance on Harris as your wide receiver 4. And if it's a little bit of a higher pick, I like Christian Watson in a contender window. I even like Wan'Dale Robinson, who, I think broke out and could go to a really good. Pope, what do you think?
I think DJ Moore could be a guy. Just talked about him. Second round pick. You know what I mean? I don't know what their value is on where you're looking there, but like, I think he's a guy that enough people are kind of meh on. I mean, he's had some blow up games, so maybe not. But like, I think you could potentially get him for a second, depending on the manager.
He's between the 203 and the 202, 203 in startups right now.
Yeah, like I think I'm fine paying that. Like, I mean, I'd pay a second round pick for him. Given the shot, I'm not a huge DJ Moore guy, but like, I don't think that's terrible. I think Jaden Higgins has showed enough. If you could get a second for him in Texas and Houston there. Even honestly, like Michael Pittman, maybe. If it's a late second, maybe, I'm fine with that. I think you could expect a little bit of a bounce back from that offense. Other than that, I mean, I don't know if there's too many that you're really getting for a second. Jordan Addison, maybe if you're hoping a quarterback upgrade, probably get him for a second.
Are you sure you want Jordan Addison right now?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you'd have to anticipate
Well, you didn't see the Greg Roman thing. Did you see that he got arrested too, Jordan Addison?
Oh yeah, it's all right. He just didn't leave a casino. He's fine. It's all right. It wasn't anything crazy. It's all right. That's nothing. That's just like a Saturday night.
Are they going to give the kid from Maryland a chance there that they spent the third on?
Probably not.
Never. Mailer, Felton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll get some work in there, but I don't know. Jordan Addison was like the deep shot throw there. I think DJ Moore is probably your play, Julian.
DJ Moore is a good play. I would try to push that. Yeah, I think you need a floor. Yeah. Yeah.
Because either way, like even if he gets traded, like he's still going to probably be traded to a spot where he's like a good option in that offense. Like no one's going to trade for him and not use him,
Yeah.
And hopefully this breakout kind of shows, maybe we should use him more if he stays kind of thing, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Let's go to our final two players here. We'll get out of here. We're at the hour 13 mark. Popes, appreciate it. I know we're going a little long, but that's okay. We're having a good conversation as long as you don't got to go anywhere. This next guy we're going to talk about, Popes, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on him. And it's Tyler Shough of the Saints. I know you do a lot of, grinding the tape, and when we've talked, you've had some pretty strong opinions and feelings about quarterbacks in Dynasty. Tyler Shough's been traded 257 times. He's the number 6 most traded player in the last week. He was the 8th pick in the second round last year, 26 years old, turning 27 his sophomore year. He had 17 or more points in 8 starts. He had 17 or more points in all but 2 games that he did start, which was a total of 8. So 6 out of his 8 starts, he had 17 total fantasy points. And that's not even including week 18, which, really was a game that was competitive against the Falcons. Both those teams were playing a win. And if you play in week 18, he had over 20 fantasy points in that one too, which I didn't count in those numbers. But right now he's being drafted behind Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Cam Ward. Sorry, he's being drafted ahead of those guys. Misspoke. Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Cam Ward, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield. The guy I think that's most interesting to talk about here is the 2 guys I think are Bryce and Cam Ward, right? It's a lot of mixture of older veterans. Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, we have no idea where he's going to go. I know there's a lot of people that are in on Kyler this year right now and are calling him out as a buy. Baker obviously looked really good. Looked like he was in an MVP year, but then he ended up getting hurt. Never was the same. And then obviously we talked about Goff. Let's focus on Cam Ward and let's focus on these 2 guys plus Tyler Shough. To start the conversation off, who do you prefer of those 3 guys? Does it matter of the window that you're in terms of if you're a contender, if you're, 2 years out from competing? Is that factor in for you? Because, we're talking about a guy going into his second year, but he's going to be 27 next year.
Yeah, I'm not a big Tyler Shough guy. So DVOA, it's not really been transitioned a ton into fantasy football from Aaron Schatz. We have him over at FTN, and he ranks 28th with a negative 11 point, or no, that's Spencer Rattler. Still bad. Not too much further. 28. It's still 28, just wrong number. Minus 8.6% for his DVOA, which is 28th amongst the quarterbacks for the season. Ultimately, it's kind of leveling out the playing field, accommodating for worse competition versus better competition, trying to level the field. And it's a good metric. It's very well used. The guys that are at the top of this: Matt Stafford, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Drake May, Jared Goff, Daniel Jones was doing well. Really guys that are having
Where's my guy Bo Nix?
Buried. He stinks. 20. He's in positive, but he's at 20. Which I would agree with because I don't like Bo Nix either. No. So with Tyler Shough, there's some fantasy production. I think amongst the guys you're talking about, I'd take him over Bryce. I think just because there's some more stability, he's the rookie quarterback tied to Kellen Moore. Feels like a guy that's the bridge again, much like we talked about with the Browns. Well, not really the Browns. Who did we talk about? Oh yeah, why can't I think of who did we talk about with the 27 class?
We talked about the Browns.
See, we've been on here too long. I forgot who it was. But we talked about somebody being a bridge quarterback till the 27 class, and it may have even been Bryce Young. I don't really know, but
it might have been.
It feels like that's what Tyler Shough's going to be for this team. I think that they're holding out for 27. I think a lot of people are going to try to get, Arch Manning. Now Moore's going back. There's plenty of guys that have some potential coming out in 2027 as long as they continue to excel. And maybe Tyler Shough is the answer in New Orleans, but he is older. The age doesn't concern me too much with quarterback. They'll play into their 30s, especially considering. I just don't think he's truly the answer. I think he's a good quarterback. He's a quality, high-end backup. I just don't think that there's a ton here for me for fantasy. He's had some good weeks, yes, but they're playing from behind a lot of kind of garbage time points. Like, it surprises me Kyler's behind him, surprises me Baker's behind him, surprises Goff, like Ward. Like, I know Ward didn't have a great year, but like talent-wise, Cam Ward is significantly better than Tyler Shough. Like,
Ward's one ahead of him. I misspoke there.
yeah.
Ward's one ahead of him.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, but still, like in the same conversation. I mean, I get it. It was a bad season, but like it was an over expectation from Shough. It was a lackluster from Ward. It's just a lot of these guys. I think he's in a fair spot if these are all fairly close, but I still think Baker, Kyler, Ward and Goff should be definitely way ahead of him. Yeah, I'd be trading away Tyler Shough for Jared Goff easily. I would trade Tyler Shough for Cam Ward easily if that's where their values are. Baker's playing hurt half the season. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people forget that some of these things are happening, I think, and don't take them into account. Like, I don't know. I just am not huge on him. I know he had a good fantasy season, but we've seen this from other quarterbacks in the past, like where they have the good fantasy seasons, but they could still be replaced because overall their quarterback play wasn't as good as it may have seemed if you were looking at just the numbers. So yeah, I'm out. I think that it's well worth a move on, and I could see why he's the fourth most traded player personally.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was shocked, at least, if you're moving off Goff or you're moving off Baker, I would like at least a pick if I was taking on Shough. But we talk about Shough, and it's like, I like Shough. I just don't know how big the shelf life is. I mean, he's being valued right now between the 106 and the 107. That's crazy. Pretty nuts. I mean, I was in on Shough. I put out a poll when the season was over about where I said, you know what, if I'm a contender, I could get behind trading an early second or a mid second for Shough. I could get behind that with the quarterback class being the way it is, and if I needed help, I could see it. You're getting at least 1 year, but like you said, there's a good chance he's a bridge to this next class that comes up. And there's a good chance that they're drafting top 10 next year, right? So they're going to be in line to go draft a quarterback. I don't know how you don't take Cam Ward over him. I know Ward's situation is a little sticky, at least with Shough. You have Kellen Moore, you have Chris Olave, and so you can at least you trust the play caller, and you're just not really sure what's going to happen in Tennessee. But I'll lean into that murkiness or that ambiguity. I don't know
how to say it either. I'm just
going to say
it. We know what we're talking about.
Ambiguity or whatever the heck it is called. I'd rather lean into that with Ward than just trust the safe. Maybe Shough is a guy that gives you 15 to 17 points a week, but long term we don't really know how long he's going to be there. So let's move over to our last guy, and then we'll get out of here. And Julian did say thanks, and he actually asked a pretty similar question, which was, got Tyler over Bryce Young, ranked those two with Ward. We actually just talked about all three, and this was actually before we even brought that up. So I'm sure we probably answered that question. The last guy we're going to talk about, Emeka Egbuka, man. This is a guy that's going to be talked about all offseason. He's a player that burst onto the scene. He was he had a tremendous start to the year, Emeka Egbuka. He's been traded 256 times. This is a player who's young, high draft pick in the NFL this year, first round pick, went to the Bucs top 20. And, he started off the year really, really strong. He's being valued as the wide receiver 15 in startups. We did talk about him. He is valued ahead of Marv, ahead of Lad McConkey, ahead of BTJ, ahead of Rome Odunze. He's behind Garrett Wilson, and he's also behind Chris Olave right now. I think that's pretty fair, to be completely honest with you. They're bringing in a new OC, so that should change things a little bit. But ultimately, Baker's healthy. I do think Mike Evans comes back, honestly. I think he re-signs there. So I think he's coming back, and that room is a little bit crowded. So with the room being crowded, with the new OC change, with Mike Evans possibly coming back, Emeka Egbuka at 15, is this a buy or is it a sell for you right now? And are there any of the players that I talked about that you would prefer over him, like Ladd, like Marv, like BTJ, Jameson Williams, Rome Odunze, heck, Luther Burden? Any of those guys that you would take over Emeka Egbuka?
So Egbuka's, like, again, another guy that I'm very just fine with whatever direction your heart sends you. I traded him personally this season for CMC right before the playoffs started. I had a team that was a fringe team, really needed some help. Egbuka fell off in the second half, and I wanted a piece to really make a push. Ended up losing because I don't remember what. Oh, it was Puka Nacua. The Puka Nacua game, killed me. Should have easily won, but that's a discussion for a different day. Either way, yeah, I think Ibuka's fine. It is a pretty crowded room. I think there's still room for improvement. I think we ran into a little bit of a confidence issue if you follow along with how the coaches spoke about it throughout the second half of the season. Baker was hurt. The trouble is it's really crowded. I mean, it's a tough place. But the problem is the breakout didn't happen in the second half. So everybody's looking at Emeka Egbuka as like, meh, so the value's probably not there that you would hope to get. So it feels really like a hold to me just because, yes, it's crowded, but the upside could be still huge. Jalen McMillan's a question mark. He obviously got involved a ton. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, like there's a lot of mouths to feed. Add in the running backs. The big question will be the new OC, the direction he wants to take the team. But I don't think McMillan's going anywhere. If Evans is back, that's a huge hit. Godwin's a huge hit. So it was always a long game with Egbuka. You're kind of hoping he took over Godwin's role at some point. So I think you're still probably following that trajectory. We just saw an early explosion because of injuries. And now we're back to what we probably expected and why we were able to get him a little bit later in the drafts. So it feels like just because of what I would guess the street value really is. Now, yes, you can look at these tools and kind of see some stuff that happened, but like there's those tools and then there's like real street value. Like, your league, if you're going to be able to get something good for Emeka Egbuka or not. Like if you can get something good for him, I'm fine with it. Sure. Something of a similar value, but I'm not giving up anything less than a first round value because I still think he's on that trajectory and still worth where you took him last year. So why would I sell him for like second round value? Like there's just no point. Like, yeah, I get the room's crowded, but we knew that last year. We just saw an early explosion, and then now we're back to what we expected, which was kind of a low, like volume kind of guy because of a crowded room and not a ton of fantasy points early on. In a year or two, that's where we're going to see the production. So I'm not iffy to jump the gun and move on from him. Like I said, he's a hold. I mean, I guess you could argue he's a buy if someone really thinks that he's toast, but I think he's a good piece to have if you're like a contender and you need to add a depth piece. I would move him. Like that was it. My receiver room was loaded in that team, like completely loaded. So like he was an easy piece for me to move on from because yes, I like the talent, I believe in him, but he was still like not even top 5 wide receiver on my team. So like it was like an easy move. So if you're in a similar situation, some people may be in dynasty leagues, depending on how they built their roster. I think he's an easy piece to move on. He has good name value. I think he holds his value in the trade market. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm indifferent. And whatever your heart needs and whatever you need to make a move, you need to upgrade it at running back and it costs you Egbuka, I'm fine with it. If you need to, upgrade a quarterback, it costs you Egbuka, I'm fine with it. If you can get Egbuka back, then I'm fine with it as well. So,
yeah. So let's just, we don't know the landing spots yet, but in a vacuum, Tyson or Egbuka?
Tyson.
Okay. Lemon or Egbuka?
Lemon.
Okay. Tate? You sound like you're lower on Tate.
That's where it would get interesting. I'm a little lower on Tate. I think that there's a little bit. The tape's really nice. The problem is the yards per route run indicatively for his career is pretty low comparatively to the other receivers that have come out and put up top 36 finishes. So there's concern there. The tape kind of alludes to maybe being like T. Higgins more than like, I don't know, Randy Moss or something crazy that someone's probably tossing out there in the streets. So I just think that there's I'm a little lower on him. I had some of the indicators that I like personally aren't there. The tape's good. I'm not going to lie that, but it's just a little bit like it's splitting hairs between those three for me.
So it
But I'd
sounds like
probably still take Tate over him,
okay.
depending on landing spot. So that's where the vacuum it starts to get a little dicey.
Yeah.
I think immediately with the right landing spot, Tate probably outproduces Ibuka because of the murky situation. But long term, I could see Ibuka being better. So it's kind of, I guess, a pick your poison right there.
Yeah.
But then after that, it's definitely Ibuka. Like Concepcion, Boston, Chris
Boston,
Bell. You take your
Sadiq.
pick. It's Emeka Egbuka. That's probably where he falls. So that's
Yeah,
what,
so you
5.
value him about 5. You value him somewhere
Yeah.
probably around the 105 is fair, and it could get as high as 104. You know, when you talk about Tate in the landing spot, and so you're probably around the 104 to 105 is where you value Egbuka, which I think is fair.
Yeah, which is where I had him last year. That's why I said he hasn't really moved value wise for me. So
yeah, I think that's fair. Last question, and we'll get out of here because I'm looking at some trades here really quick, and I want to bring this last one up. Colson Loveland for Emeka Egbuka in a tight end premium. It's 0.75. It's not even half point. It's 0.75. I would take Loveland over Egbuka here because of the premium, and it's not even just a regular premium. It's 0.75. Are you in on this Colson Loveland hype? You talked about Burton hype a little bit. You're in on it too, right? Okay. So
yeah, I mean, I was team Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. So yeah,
okay,
I'm in on Colston Loveland.
You would take Loveland on this side in this scenario.
Yeah, I think this is pick your poison. I think they're probably equally valued because of the tight end premium. Loveland probably gives you more immediate value again, but yeah, I think that's fair.
This one's interesting too. I mean, you can't sit here and say rebuild or not rebuild it because you have two pieces in Saquon and Terry on opposite sides here. It's a PPR league. You get Emeka and Terry, or Ladd and Saquon. I would go Ladd and Saquon here. I view Ladd and Saquon Ladd and Emeka pretty lateral, pretty close. Saquon over Terry for me pretty substantially. Terry's already dealing with the injuries. And I think Saquon can still give you 2 more, top 5, top 12 seasons. I know that people were down on him this year. I think the offensive line had struggles. They're bringing in a new OC. I think Saquon can still give you an elite season or 2. I don't see that from Terry anymore. And I think the wide receivers at the top, the younger wide receivers, are a wash. Would you say that's fair?
Probably. I think that one's pretty fair too. Again, I have Saquon a little lower, so like it's a little closer for me between Saquon and Terry, but like I still think I'd probably go with Saquon and Ladd just because he's like a clear workhorse type running back potential there with really minimal behind him. So it's hard to give that value up, even if he's a little bit inefficient. So.
Well, you still got Will Shipley, you got AJ Dillon, and you got the great
my boy Tank Bigsby.
So you got to be careful there.
I love my boy Tank, but he ain't taking Saquon's job. All right.
You should hear the guy, dude. I live in Philly, and there's a lot of fans every single week.
I get it.
With fans calling up saying Tank should be getting more snaps. Why is Tank not getting more snaps? So,
I agree. That's why they're out of the playoffs. That's why they're out of the playoffs. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
Jaguars thought they were the Jaguars thought they were right taking Travis Etienne, but who's out of the playoffs? So they don't have Tank. Dude, I'm just saying.
That Bills Jags game was ridiculous. Jags I don't understand what Liam Cohen was doing, man. They were gashing the Bills on the ground, and the fact that he just stopped running the football really, like I think Travis Etienne had 4 carries in the first half, and and Shough had 3. And they had like 70 combined yards. But good for you guys. Maybe not so much this week.
It's the psyche of playing the Bills, That's what happens when Josh Allen's threatened.
Like Tom Brady effect.
That's the psyche. They're overthinking it a little bit.
Yeah, but
it was a little wild. They didn't go more run, but
I thought so too. But let's get you out of here. We're at the hour 30 mark. We really appreciate the time. Tell us, kind of what you're working on and where we can find you.
Yeah, I got stuff over at FTN. Scouting report should be coming out soon. Getting some of those pushed through, and then working on a rookie scouting guide over at Beyond the Chalk. Probably going to have some other little articles in there too, maybe some Senior Bowl, some Shrine Bowl stuff like that coming out. Working through it, a lot of time and effort going into it. Just mostly the scouting reports, so that is delaying some traditional articles, but we'll get to it as the off season goes on. So easiest place, just follow me on X at Popes FFH, and you'll get all of it. Post links there. So,
well, I've seen a little bit of the preview of the rookie guide. It looks good. So excited to see when you finish that project and get that launched. And yeah, go Broncos.